we have a significant severe weather outbreak possible to unfold tomorrow across the north central United States here. Looking out for some very significant supercells and overall a large squalling to go overnight here. We do have K values reaching over 5,000 plus joules per kilogram, and that allow the chance for some supercells and tornadic supercells to overall develop once we get into the late time period here. Looking at overall a pretty good tornado threat as well. We're looking at for a large enhanced risk according to the Storm Prediction Center, and a moderate cannot be ruled out of the possibility. Both that for do, let's get into the detailed forecast. But before we do get in the main forecast, I would recommend that if you do have any family members within this region, including the enhanced risk, I would recommend you do share them the video and as well tell them to subscribe to the channel, as I'll be having updates today and tomorrow on the severe weather threat. So be sure to tell them and inform them about this channel. And if you want to subscribe, be sure to smash that subscribe button. And if you enjoy the video, be sure to smash that like button. But let's go ahead and get into the main forecast. So today, we do have an extending enhanced risk here all the way now from the Canadian border to nearly the Nebraska border with South Dakota. So this enhanced risk is extending like I did predict it to, and I do continue to see this enhanced risk move into Nebraska. I think we could definitely get enhanced worthy for northwestern Nebraska, and I do expect that by later today. So the enhanced risk now includes around 396,000 people, so it's continuing to increase here. It's almost 400,000, so basically it's almost 500,000 people, which for this general region is quite a bit. It includes big cities, believe it or not, like Rapid City, and then it includes areas like Rapid Valley, and then it has some more rural areas such as Mandan, Dickinson, and Spearfish. So the main area to really watch out for me is going to be Dickinson, because their name has been thrown out a lot within the SPC descriptions and overall forecast. So if you live near Dickinson, I think you guys should definitely have something that very, very well keep a close eye on throughout the day here. Have a plan just in case, because severe weather will get quite rough as we go into the late hours here. So definitely maybe have a radio on, TV on, because today could get rough if it's forecasted and if it does verify. Slight risk as well continue to extend a little bit more to the south here, going all the way. Sorry, I'm talking about the marginal. Sorry, the slight risk goes all the way down into Nebraska and all the way up to the Canadian border. So I honestly think this enhanced risk, if I'm correct, I think it can kind of go out like this, like a little bit further out down into western, maybe northwestern Nebraska. Maybe this little stretch, maybe like this. I do think this is definitely possible to extend this a little bit more to the south here based on what models are showing condition wise. So the slight risk includes just over 500,000 people, and specifically rounded up 700,000, including Bismarck, North Dakota, Minot, North Platte, Aberdeen, and Michelle. And then the marginal risk does include quite a bit of portions there all the way from Kansas to the Canadian border, going throughout the spine of the United States. And this includes around 5.4 million people, so huge jump as it includes obviously areas like Minneapolis and St. Paul. So that's the reason why that marginal number is so high. But we're obviously watching out for more rural areas, Sioux Falls and Lincoln. You guys are, and actually I believe Billings is not too far outside that marginal. Tornado threat is only still a 5% chance, but there is a small chance we can get maybe a small 10%, maybe a very, very small 10% located within this region. I think North Dakota or South Dakota do have the best chance for some tornadoes today. So I'm definitely watching out for a potential 10%. I don't think it's going to be super likely. Obviously, it's a very, very low chance, but there is definitely something to keep a close eye on. We cannot rule out the possibility of a 10%, especially if conditions upscale throughout the next few hours and the next few updates. So I think overall, tornadoes cannot be ruled out. Obviously, we're kind of mainly looking at for the wind and hail, but tornado is obviously going to be a pretty widespread threat. We have a pretty widespread 5%, including 4 states here, much of western Dakotas and much of eastern Montana and portions of northeastern Wyoming. So we do have a pretty widespread 5%. So there's definitely something to keep a close eye on for some widespread tornadic supercells throughout tomorrow. So we can definitely see a couple or maybe even a few tornadoes. I don't expect more than 10, but of course we can get shocked. But 5%, including 500,000 people, including Rapid City, Bismarck, Mandan, Dickinson, and Williamson. And once again, Dickinson is being included in that name. And then very, very widespread 2%. And that includes around only 195,000 people, including Pierre and Miles City, Montana. Obviously, the big threat, though, we're watching out is for the winds here. We do have a 30% significant severe, with a portion of that 15 as well being significant severe. So we kind of have a special area to watch out for that main squall and to bring in some very, very gusty winds here, and as well for those maybe surface-based supercells to bring some very large hail and gusty winds as well. So 30% in general, we do have around 192,000 people, so basically 200,000, including Dickinson, of course, Willingston, Glendive, and Sidney, Montana. And then the significant severe risk, whether it's a 15 or 30%, includes 374,000 people, so basically 400,000. And that includes areas like Rapid City, Dickinson once again, Spearfish, Rapid Valley, and Sturgis, South Dakota. And then the 15% includes around 1 million people. Rapid City, Bismarck, Minot, North Platte, and Aberdeen, you guys as well are not out in the neck of the woods as you guys are in that 15%. And then the 5% includes basically around 6 million people. Obviously, because we do have a 5% for the Twin Cities, but of course we have Lincoln and Sioux Falls to keep a close eye on, and the hail threat as well. I think the hail threat is going to be the largest threat today. At a 30%, it's a lot more widespread, with a significant severe, including 521,000 people. So this significant severe for hail includes Rapid City, Bismarck, Mandan, Dickinson, and Willingston. And then that 30% chance in general includes 331,000 people, including Mandan, Pierre, and Miles City. But I mean, Dickinson's in every single significant severe risk. So you guys have to definitely keep a very close eye if you live in those areas. We obviously can't forget to talk about today, though. Today we do have a very small slight risk there for portions of northwestern Montana there, just outside of the Great Falls region, including, actually, never mind, Great Falls is in there. I don't know why I said that before even looking. So Great Falls, you guys are in that slight risk there. We do have 3 marginals across the United States here, but 2 in the north central, and that includes all added up around 1 million people, including Midland, Odessa, Missoula, Montana, Helena, Montana, and Big Springs, Texas. Every time I say Helena, Montana, I feel like I'm saying Hannah, Montana. I don't know why. We do only have a very, very small scattered 2% there across portions of northwestern and north central Montana, of course, including Great Falls. Wind threat and hail threat will be a little bit on the more moderate side there, but tornado threat is going to be very low today. I don't expect more than 2, but we could see a couple, maybe a few, more than 10 wind and hail reports together. But let's now go ahead and look at the models. So let's go ahead and now get a look at 12Z HRR so we can get a look at the next 48 hours. So by the time we get to around 7 o'clock Mountain Time, we can start seeing those scattered storms there across northwestern and north central Montana there near Great Falls. And these storms will continue to be quite scattered and discrete throughout the overnight hours there. By 10 o'clock Mountain Time, we are continuing to see those storms just outside Great Falls, Montana, and those more rural areas near the Canadian border. So today, won't be that crazy. Let's now go to tomorrow. So by around 4 o'clock Mountain Time, we're going to start seeing a few scattered discrete cells, multi-cell storms across portions of Montana, specifically more the eastern portion there, as we get now into around 5 and 6 o'clock Mountain Time. So around 6 or 7 Central Time is when those storms will start nearing the Dakotas here, but we're going to start seeing those storms firing off first in Montana, and then they'll kind of become a lot more severe once we get into the central portion of the United States here. So we're looking at overall a pretty large squall line with with elevated base supercells. However, there could be some surface-based supercells embedded within this squall line, specifically your North Dakota and Montana. And that's exactly where we can watch out for some supercells. And the best chance to see some supercells will be some strong storms that are in front of that squall line, which we see a lot, which we've actually seen quite a bit this year. So there's definitely a chance to see some tornadoes there. That's exactly why this is not a 10% really as of now. And that's why I said it's a low threat to see 10% in general, because it's going to be more of a squall line. So that's definitely not really 10% worthy. However, there are some really, really good exceptional conditions that can allow for this to have a bit more supercells and a little bit more severe tornadic supercells. So overall, just got to keep a very close eye on that. By the overnight hours, these storms will go rapidly and quickly through Pierre and Bismarck and make their way into areas like Aberdeen, as well getting towards areas like Valentine, Nebraska by we get to around 3 a.m. So definitely some pretty strong storms overnight, and that'll continue into early tomorrow morning there, continue to the rush hour around 7 a.m., getting that rain starting to continue around areas just outside the big cities, as well as starting to get that rain near Sioux Falls and Sioux City, as well as getting that rain near areas such as Fargo and even there across western Minnesota. Let's not go ahead and look at the helicity numbers here from 0 to 1 kilometers. So obviously today we're not expecting too crazy numbers here as we go into the overnight hours. So by around 9 o'clock Mountain Time, we could maybe get to 350 meters square per second square, but actually the max here is at 406. So 406 is not too shabby here, so we can definitely see some decent hail and as well some decent wind threats. But as we go into deep overnight hours, that halicity will definitely increase. However, the conditions to support hail and wind will obviously die off a little bit. Let's not go all the way to tomorrow though. So tomorrow, about around 9 o'clock Central is when we start getting those really good halicity numbers, because obviously we will see some discrete cells as early as around maybe 7 o'clock Mountain, so 8 o'clock Central. But really, once we get it, those storms really won't become actually supercells or severe thunderstorms until they cross the Dakota border line, and that's exactly why those halicity numbers will take a little bit to actually increase here. So you can kind of see a little bit, maybe 100 to 200 and widespread across Nebraska and South Dakota, but the main area to watch out will be North Dakota and portions of Montana, getting anywhere from 300 to possibly 600 meters square per second squared here. So definitely a decent amount of rotation and within the atmosphere there. So as we now go into 10 o'clock Central, a little bit concerning of a number halicity wise, getting up to 807. So definitely a ton of vorticity and ton of rotation overall in that region. So definitely watching out for the tornado zone. They'll probably be right here. That's exactly dead center in that 5%. And then we do actually have some good numbers here, anywhere from 500 to 600 here as well, and across portions of western South Dakota. And obviously that'll kind of die off once we get into the overnight hours past midnight. Let's not go ahead and look at the K values here. So K values for the next few hours here will actually get quite high across portions of the central United States. But as you do see, there's very, very low K values right now across Montana. So how do we have a slight risk for severe weather? Well, obviously that severe weather will continue. Really won't get to its around its maximum until around 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock Mountain Time. And by 8 o'clock Mountain Time, we do actually have anywhere from 800 joules per kilogram to possibly anywhere from 1800 joules per kilogram. So there's definitely some decent K values that will kind of peak in just before it's too late because of how warm those temperatures are. But look at the K values. These K values, the fact that they are this warm the day before the severe weather event is definitely going to be quite concerning here, and there's going to be a ton of energy being stored between 2 days of extreme heat. By we get to tomorrow here around 2 o'clock Central, we're already getting K values of over 5,200 to possibly 5,300 joules per kilogram, and that's hours before the main event here. And so we really get to around 9 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Mountains when we actually start seeing that severe weather popping up. And that's the main area to really watch out, I think, is northwestern North Dakota, getting up to possibly 5,200 joules per kilogram. This is my area to really watch out for tornadoes today, but overall, really watching out for this area down into portions of southwestern Nebraska. This is kind of my whole area to watch out, but this is kind of my bullseye for today. Portions of northwestern South Dakota, western North Dakota, and portions of eastern Montana. Let's not go ahead and get a look now at the superset composite parameter here. So we're gonna obviously have a very, very small chance of supercells today across Montana. Our really highest number is gonna be like a 13 or 14, which is not that high, especially for the highest number of the day. And as we now go later on down to tomorrow here, we're gonna get to around 8 o'clock Central, so around 7 o'clock Mountain Time, where we're gonna get a really good chance for supercells, getting up to a 49 on the supercell composite parameter. So definitely a very good chance for some pretty large and significant supercells across Montana and North Dakota, with some lower but still high numbers across the southern portion there, across southern North Dakota, northern South Dakota, and eastern Montana. All the way until we get to around 11 o'clock Eastern, so 10 o'clock Central, we still have a very good chance for some supercells, getting that up to a 62 just to the north of the Canadian border and the U.S. border. So we actually have up to a 55 or 62 on the superset composite parameter. So we can definitely see some really significant supercells, which is why these conditions are exceptional and why we can possibly make an exception to have a 10% for today, even though it's mainly a wind and hail threat. But there's definitely a very good chance, as we do have some really good chances for supercells, anywhere from 28 to as high as possibly a 60, maybe 56 there for the United States. But yeah, as we even go later now into the overnight hours, we can possibly see a few supercells there across portions of South Dakota and possibly a few there across Nebraska. But the main area to watch out for is going to definitely be North Dakota, northern South Dakota, and portions of eastern Montana. Let's not go ahead and look at the significant tornado parameter here. So obviously very low threat for tornadoes today. So obviously we do have a pretty high number here, up to 11 across Montana, but obviously that's not even close to that slight risk here. I believe that's actually in the general risk. And the reason why that number is so high is because of how favorable the conditions are. Little did they know there's a lot of capping inversion there. Let's not go ahead and look tomorrow though. Obviously tomorrow's the main day. So as we get to around maybe as early as possibly 8 o'clock central, we're going to start getting some really high chances for tornadoes across this region here, getting as high up to a 24 on the STP according to the HRRR. As we get to around 9 o'clock, so 8 o'clock central, getting up to a 30 on the STP. So like I did say, although it's not going to be widespread tornado outbreak, we can definitely see still a large area to watch out for some significant tornadoes. And the very few tornadoes that I'm expecting for tomorrow can very well be very strong or severe here. So really watching out for western North Dakota, eastern Montana, and northwestern South Dakota there, getting up to a 42, guys, a 42 just north of the Canadian border. And this will continue as we get to around 10 o'clock central as well. A very small chance to watch out for some tornadoes across portions of western South Dakota and western Nebraska. But boy, we do have some really very high skyrocketing numbers, even by 1 in the morning, watching out for a few scattered areas across South Dakota and North Dakota for some overnight tornadoes. Let's not go ahead and look at the shear here. Sorry guys, I got a message on Discord, but let's go ahead and now look at the shear values for today. So shear values is actually going to be pretty darn high across portions of Montana. That's kind of really the only reason why we actually do have up to a slight risk, because of how favorable the shear is, and allowing for those storms to really pick up, and as well just allow for those thunderstorms to develop here as a result of the updraft here between those really cold winds coming from the Rockies there and that warm air coming from the Gulf. So really watching out for a good amount of vorticity here because of the amount of shear we're seeing here. So that's exactly why helicity isn't too shabby for a certain time period. So helicity and shear is not going to be that bad for Montana today, which is why we do a slight risk here. Really, where for that, I think we will only see a marginal. But look at the shear tomorrow here. Tomorrow we're going to be seeing a significant amount of shear into the backside. So around 10 o'clock central, obviously that's exactly why we're going to be watching out for these areas, because we're missing a ton of exceptional amount of helicity and spin the atmosphere. And as well with that shear, that's going to really allow that chance for some amount of rotation there in the within the updraft here. As we go in the updraft, we're going to be watching out for vorticity going up here. So that's exactly why the best chance for tornadoes tomorrow is going to be portions of eastern Montana, western North Dakota, and portions of western and northwestern South Dakota. But we're going to be seeing a ton of shear on that backside here, which is about the biggest threat for severe weather. We'll kind of be a little bit on the western side of that risk. Let's now go ahead and go look at the cap values here and cap inversion, so we can get a look at some soundings here for tomorrow. I'm going to skip today. I don't want to make this video too long or long, because it does not to be this video does not have to be that long here, because we're really specifically talking about one day here. So let's go ahead and zoom all the way up to tomorrow here to around 19Z as kind of when, or 18Z and 19Z is when we start to see that cap breaking across portions of Montana and the Dakotas here. So we're going to start seeing those severe storms starting off as early as 19Z, which would be the mid-afternoon. Some severe storms. Cape is already at almost 4,000 joules per kilogram. SRH is going to be increasing ever so slightly since it is a little bit early in the day. 79 on the 1 kilometer, 232 3 kilometers. Very low cap there. Limited index is quite high, so we're looking at possibly overall a pretty basically very unstable atmosphere, and that's going to be thanks to all that shear there. So 91 degrees. Look at that, 91 degrees, which is why that Cape so high, and dew points are as well pretty decent. So there's a pretty big gap between the temperature and the dew points, which will allow for a lot of unstable atmosphere there, specifically across Montana. So you can kind of see marginal severe, and you're gonna start seeing as well some severe going as far down as portions of South Dakota. So really 19Z, 20Z is just basically severe. So we have to get a little bit more into the overnight hours to start watching out for some tornadoes. So still severe there across portions of western Montana there. So you see that cap breaking across portions of northwestern North Dakota. And like I did say, North Dakota is the main area to watch out for tornadoes. As early as 20Z, we do have a tornado reading here. The photograph is actually not too shabby. You kind of have it going up to the north and then east. Then east. So that we do have some good amount of spin in the atmosphere. You can kind of see that if you kind of put like a bubble, or you fly a balloon in the air, that's exactly where that direction the balloon's going to go. So that's going to be showing that there is some spin in the atmosphere. So that's exactly something to watch out. It's exactly why we have a tornado possible hazard. Cape there, 4,200. Lifted index here is at -12, so very, very unstable here. So that's exactly to watch out. It's very unstable here. You can kind of see 90 degrees and 67-degree viewpoint. So overall, a pretty big gap between an air parcel and in the air in general surrounding it. So that's exactly why we are looking at for a pretty big threat here. BRN shear 73 meters square per second square. So we are seeing quite a bit of shear here. Look at that. 6 kilometers, 55 knots there. SRH 156 in 3 kilometers at 364. Supercell at 20.4 and a STP at 2.5. So we're definitely watching out for some really significant supercells here across portions of Northwest North Dakota as early as the mid-afternoon, but it's going to be a little bit more specific region here. And even some severe weather as early as the mid-afternoon going into portions of southern Nebraska. Let's not go ahead and look at 22Z here. It's a little bit later into the evening hours. Oops, that's not what we want to look at. We want to look up here across portions of northeastern Montana. It does seem like it's going to be a little bit of a loading factor in that time period there. So we will have it kind of main area to watch out between 20 and 21Z here across portions of northeastern North Dakota, and that'll kind of die off a little bit here. But then as we get deeper into the overnight hours, we're going to have to really watch out. But 3600 there across portions of Nebraska, severe threat there. We're not looking at any large tornadic storms, but we do have a 10 there on supercells, so there is definitely a smaller chance for some supercells all the way down there across Nebraska. Then look at portions of western South Dakota as well, seeing some pretty good numbers there as well, but still a very low threat for some widespread supercells. Let's now go ahead and look now at southwestern Montana, not looking too good there. Let's now go ahead and look now at the 0Z here. That's exactly when cap starts to break even more there, so even better conditions at 0Z there. 4,090 Cape there. Capped at -58, lifted index at -13, which is actually -13 is what we saw in the Dixie Alley outbreak there. I believe, was it March 25th? So I'm not comparing that, but it's definitely something to keep a close eye on with that time. But lifted index, we're seeing a very, very unstable atmosphere here, which is exactly not what you want to see, because the more unstable, the better chance for some supercells and tornadoes, obviously. So we're seeing SRH at 160 in the 1 kilometer with 3 kilometers at 282. So not too shabby at all. We are seeing some decent shear getting up to maybe 50 knots near 8 kilometers, and as high as 88 there in the LCL, which is cloud cover there. Supercell 15.3, 1.4 STP. The photograph though is a little bit on the messy side, but still watching out for a tornado hazard. It's going to be very widespread there across western North Dakota there. Severe. Continue to see those tornado icons here and tornado hazards. As we now go later now into around 02Z, let's see if this tornado threat continues to move eastward, kind of right here in this gap near the Canadian border. We still do have a tornado threat there right near the Canadian border. Oops, I did not want to do that. Let's go back, shall we? Let's see, we got to go back to 0Z, 02Z. So we do have actually a tornado hazard right there on the Canadian border. We do have there right there a 31. Holy cow, we have a 31.8 on supercell composite with the STPS high to 10.7, but the STP-CIN's at 3.7. 4,200 Cape there. Lifted index -11. SRH at 1 kilometer, ladies and gentlemen, is 379, and actually shear is not bad whatsoever. Critical angles at 82. This is a very good setting around the Canadian border there. So the Canadian border can get very well hit quite hard there. Look at another reading there, 34.2 for portions of the North Dakota Canadian border. Tornado hazard. SRH at 385 and 1 kilometer at 417 and 3 kilometers. 4,030 Cape, 12 lifted index there. I mean, this is a very, very good sounding there for 02Z right on the Canadian border. So really watching out for that region there. So this can definitely be a pretty big overnight threat. But even though we aren't really watching out for the main tornado threat down there across portions of South Dakota and Nebraska, we can definitely have a few scattered chances. But hope you guys enjoyed this portion. Now I'll show you guys my last portion of the video with my general forecast. So here's my look for today for severe weather overall forecast here. So I'm going to give a 2 on the tornado probability scale here. So that's going to be out of a 10. So I do see really low chance. We're going to have like that scale as low as a 2 here. So there's definitely a low chance for some tornadoes across today. Obviously, we do have a moderate threat though for some damaging wind threats, and as well a moderate threat for some large hail. But again, it really won't be that widespread. And obviously, we do have a very low threat for a tornado. So obviously, this is day 1. Let's go ahead and look at day 2. Obviously, day 2 is a lot more interesting here. So obviously, I do think we do have a high damaging wind threat, obviously, and a very high large hail threat. But I want to keep the tornado threat at a lower threat because it's not going to be super duper widespread. Obviously, this is overall forecast. You could have a moderate tornado threat for specific regions and even a high tornado threat for specific regions here. So we just got to keep a very close eye on that. But overall, I think the overall forecast for tomorrow is going to have a little bit lower tornado threat. I think it could definitely become a moderate. And actually, let me actually change this real quick. There we go. That's actually a little bit better. So now I do have a overall forecast as a moderate threat for tornadoes. But for the specific region near North Dakota and Montana, I'm going to have a high risk for tornadoes there. Doesn't mean there can be a 10% chance SIG there, but obviously I think there's a lot more confidence in that specific region for those tornadic supercells here. So overall forecast moderate there for tornado threat, high, large hail, and large damaging wind threat, and overall tornado probability scale up to as high as 6 here. So pretty good chance for some tornadoes tomorrow. But hope you guys enjoyed the video and see you guys later.